Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the DGFirst Management Committee. Before we actually start, there's a good news story, so I'd like to read that out, if that's okay. This is celebrating the success of STARS, that's Short-Term Assessment and Reablement Service. Dumfries and Galloway Council and NHS Dumfries and Galloway on the 8th of November celebrated the achievement of 12 of their team of health and social care support workers who have gained a National Progression Award in Health and Social Care, promoting reablement. The training course was developed by Wendy Thompson, Facilitator Occupational Therapy NHS, in partnership with Scottish Colleges. It took the team 3 years to achieve the National SQA accreditation. Dumfries College reports that the course evaluation and retention has been one of the most successful. The in-house evaluations have all demonstrated improved confidence, ability, knowledge and application to practice behavioural change. We have a motivated, trained and confident team to support service users to achieve their maximum independence and remain safe in their own homes. This is a nationally recognised qualification, and this team are the first in Scotland to complete the course. The Scottish Government has recognised and congratulated the graduates, Dumfries and Galloway Council and NHS Dumfries and Galloway on this great piece of partnership working, championing innovation and working to secure a fit-for-purpose workforce for the future. This work has been submitted for the COSLA Excellence Awards 2014, and more detailed information can be found on Connect. Thank you. Oh yeah. Now that I've just read all that out, I'll just note this meeting may be recorded and subsequently made available to the public for listening purposes. Okay. If I could first ask for Sederunt and Apologies.
Good afternoon. I have apologies from Councillors Collins, Yen, Mail, Tate and Wiper.
Thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest? No? Okay, if we go on to the minute of meeting of 20th August, this is for approval. Obviously, I wasn't there at the time because I wasn't on this committee, but do we have somebody who can move and second that?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you.
And to second, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, item 4 is the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2013-14 for the period ended 30th of September 2013. This is a routine monitoring report which covers the period up to the end of September, over a month and a half ago, and the department are predicting that they have a small underspend of £6,700 for the year. Is there anything you'd like to add to the report?
No, thank you, Chair, but I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Chair. It's with regard to Appendix 2. Under the reduction in street cleansing inputs, there is the September figures would indicate that the full saving requirement will be met, but in the bottom one under the efficiency programme, it doesn't sort of give us that confidence within it. Will we meet the full saving with regard to the 205,000 or not? And the other question is, we have an overspend in the waste collection service. I was just wondering, I noted in, I think it was the Galloway News, that their staff paid in Stewartry at a different rate or for different hours than we pay in other parts of the region. Has that been taken into account there, or is there a reserve put aside if we need to address that issue?
Chair, we're working on to take the first point first, Councillor Hislop, the savings, procurement savings, we're working with colleagues in the corporate centre to achieve those savings. At the moment, I can't really give you a precise yes or no. On the second matter, that's contained within our overall revenue budget.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. I maybe should have said earlier on, perhaps it's appropriate to thank Patsy Gilroy and Andrew Wood, since this is the first time that you've chaired this committee, for their stewardship over the past sort of 18 months. And I'm sure that all members here would thank Patsy and Andrew for actually doing that. However, coming on to the budget report itself, just looking at the key issues part of it in 3.4, the project overspends will have in part matched by a forecast underspend in supplies. Can you give us an expansion of in part?
I must apologise, there is a missing word in there as well. Caroline, can you remember what should have been in there?
Chair, unfortunately we did miss a word out here. It should be the projected overspend on the waste collection service is in part matched by the underspend in supplies. Obviously, waste collection is the only one that is overspending at the moment.
If there's no further questions from members just now, there was a couple of wee things that I wanted to ask just for clarity. There seems to be a difference from attending or watching the FES committee in terms of like the revenue funding to the actual budget that's presented here. I was just wondering if you could explain the difference for the benefit of members.
Certainly, Chair. I'll keep it brief. If anybody has detailed questions, then I'm more than happy to go into a more detailed explanation. The difference between the commissioned budgets and the revenue budget, you're not comparing the same, precisely the same things. So the road maintenance budget includes some things which are not part of my revenue budget, but also includes other items and excludes certain functions. So the figures are just not comparable directly. The commission budgets also include capital money, which obviously the revenue budget doesn't. But if there are detailed questions, then I'm more than happy to come back to members on.
Thank you. Well, just as a kind of follow-up to that, when we're looking at the underspend and overspends, obviously it's noted areas where there has been an underspend, overspend in Appendix 1. So, as I'm learning about the structure of this and the way that it's done, there is as I understand it, there's a commission for a certain amount to deliver a certain service. So I'm to understand that if there is an underspend or overspend, there's a environment which passes that to another part.
That really depends on what the underspend is caused by. If it is caused by a service efficiency, then the underspend remains with us. If it's an underspend because we're not delivering a portion of service, then that underspend would be returned to the commissioning committee for reallocation.
Thank you. Okay, with that then, if there's no further questions from members, are we happy to go to the recommendation and note the projected underspend of £6,700? Okay, thank you. Yep, sorry, I'll be able to let you in here.
Thank you, Chair. I must apologise, members. Due to an error on our part, page 15 of your papers, which is the first landscape sheet, should not have been included with your papers. So if you could ignore that page, I would be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the Trading Operations Monitoring Report 2013-14 for the period ended 30th September 2013. Again, as with the last report, this covers the period up to the end of September, and the Department are currently predicting that the trading operations will return a surplus or profit of £85,660. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's just with regard, we've got a surplus of 86,000 there. There's no concerns with regard to any inflationary pressures within the trading operations whereby an increase in cost of materials or something wouldn't be picked up within any trading operation. You know, if we can't pass it on, if we've got a contract that says it's such with maybe 2% and it goes up 3%.
We don't have that concern at the moment. For the in-house contracted services, then there is central provision anyway for inflationary, things like food cost increases or energy cost increases.
Councillor Martin, did you want to? All right. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Just one point, just a bit of clarification. With the vehicle maintenance, and you have it 3.6, and you note, and obviously there's a lack of income there from the fire service maintenance, but there's a contract now in place for the Scottish Fire Service of Scotland there which, as you say, mitigates a lot of the decrease in the income at the time. Can I just ask, is that all going swimmingly with the contract? There's no sort of real issues with the Fire Service of Scotland now on that, and everything's moving on so that we will be in the position there to service the vehicles as and when required, etc.
If I could comment on the last point first and then come back to the beginning of your question. There are certainly no problems about servicing the vehicles because, in effect, we've been doing that forever. No, there are no problems with the contract. It appears to be working well. Just look across at Mr. Dempster. I don't think there are any issues.
With regards to the vehicle maintenance, we, at the time of the departure from Dumfries and Galloway to the Fire and Rescue Service, we had indicated to them that we would be more than willing to carry on doing maintenance. We've been having numerous discussions with them regarding the service. We're certainly at the moment doing the majority, if not all, the ad hoc breakdowns and repairs within Dumfries and Galloway, and there's still some ongoing discussion with the Fire and Rescue Service associated with the regular fleet inspections, the big services that are being done. Currently, the Fire and Rescue Service are trundling their vehicles up to their central belt garages to do the major repairs, which obviously we would be very keen for them to bring back into Dumfries and keep it within Dumfries. So we're proactively working with them to try and achieve that. But as I say, routine breakdowns and other such bits and pieces are being done. But we hope that those parts will come back to us. But that's still a bit of an unknown quantity at this time.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. And is that contract on a fixed term basis at this point? Do we have a 3-year contract for that, etc.? Because the point being that, you know, if we know we have that in place, and we can look to that in future, that we know that that's a revenue income coming into this committee.
Through you, Chair. At the moment, we have sent to the Scottish Fire and Rescue and the police for the various activities service level agreements. Those service level agreements are based around an annual replacement. Because of these new organisations, they're still in a bit of a quandary over how their procurement process is going to develop, whether they stay very much on a local basis or whether they will go out for 3 or 5 year contracts. So we have submitted an SLA to them. We still await that formally returned to the council, so that there is, in the spirit, a formal contractual partnership. And again, for police, fire, we are still waiting for those to come back, and hopefully those will come. But the activities are going, but we would certainly like to hope that we can enter into some longer term arrangements with them to cover the majority of the previous business and to have some stability within Dumfries and Galloway.
Councillor Dryborough.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a question on top of service level agreements and things like that, and what potential there is in the future for partnership working with, for instance, the NHS. Is there any discussions ongoing at the moment with that and the NHS in Dumfries and Galloway to do any maintenance on vehicles?
Again, through you, Chair. Yes, we currently do routine maintenance to some of their fleet on the pool car side within the NHS. Again, looking towards business opportunities and to cover as many operational practices as we can, we would endeavour to try and get some of their bigger vehicles, etc. in. So there is an ongoing dialogue with them. Some of those vehicles are currently tied into other contractual arrangements just now, but as those come up, we have certainly expressed a willingness to them to discuss and see what other partnerships we can enter into.
Just on maybe a note to do with vehicle maintenance contracts, we were fortunate to attend an event yesterday at Wayside Depot, and I was just wondering if that's something that to the future, that sort of contracts for maintenance would be of benefit to these sort of reports next year.
Yes, Chair. For the benefit of the other members, this was in association with Scotland Transerve. They had their board down travelling around the trunk road network yesterday, and they happened to be in Wayside Depot, and our chair and vice were kind enough to come down to just meet their directors. We're obviously carrying out the maintenance for Scotland Transerve and the trunk road, similar to what we did with Amy Highways. Scotland Transerve have provided us with some of their winter equipment, these very large gritters, and it's clear at this time that the maintenance of these vehicles, Balfour BT Fleet, they're very keen to work with us, and I think it's fair to say that a contractual arrangement will be in place very shortly to maintain those gritters that they have provided in Dumfries and Galloway. They are also looking for us to potentially maintain the other gritters that are currently based up in Ayr, and potentially other vehicles from their main depot that if they're in this area, they will have them done. So, and that includes emergency breakdowns as well, because they were highly impressed with the facilities at the Garrick and the other depots they saw down at Sederunt.
If there's no further questions from members, happy to go to the recommendations then, to note that the trading operation is currently projected to return a surplus of £85,659. Agreed? Thank you. Okay, if we move on then to item 6, this is the 6 monthly assessment of DGFirst business plan performance. It's the Director's assessment of the 6 monthly progress on the delivery of the 2012 to 15 business plan for DGFirst. We're being asked to look at the overall summary of performance set out in Appendix 1 and scrutinise exception reporting. Now, are there any questions from members at the moment? Beg your pardon?
I'm just wondering if the Director wants to add anything to the report.
Thank you, Councillor Driver. Your experience is proving invaluable in these matters. Would you like to add anything to the report?
Only really to say that I'm actually quite pleased with performance generally. There are a couple of things that we'd like to expand on, and I have a very short presentation that perhaps illustrates one or two of the issues that are in the performance report. If we could have the screens on, please. If we move to the first, one of the issues for us as a department is our absence rate, which is higher than the target, and you have an exception report in your papers. I think it is worth pointing out that this does mean that we have 94% of the staff at work at any one time, which is looking at it the other way around. It's also worth noting that the maximum possible number of days that could be worked has gone up in this year, but the sickness rate has gone down. So year on year, we have seen a fall in absence rates, and we continue to work towards reducing absence rates and supporting those who unfortunately are unable to work. One of the other exception reports, and this affects members directly, is the EMES. I think it's worth putting into context that when the service first was launched, we had more inquiries than any other department put together. We had 729 inquiries last year, and that's some 55% of all EMES inquiries. In the first half year, we did not meet the target. We only managed 69%, but I think if you look at the graphics there, we're still receiving more than the other council departments. And if you go to the next slide. First half year, 50% overall, but that masks an improved performance in the second quarter, i.e. the second half of the first half year, where we hit a 79% target, and we exceeded the target in last month, which is not in the report. So we are making every effort to try and meet the targets for response. The final issue, which has been of concern to us, and I have to advise you that the figure in your papers for the percentage of carriageway defects repaired within set timescales, we discovered an error in the calculation. Your papers say 53%. It is in actual fact 56%. Not a staggering improvement and still below the target. But we have made significant efforts over the last few months to improve our performance. And I'm pleased to say that our October figures are up to 76%, which is above the 70% target. And in fact, 2 of our operational areas got well over 90% done within time. Partly that is because the number of defects that are being reported, certainly there's a huge drop in defects reported by members of the public. It's down from thousands at the beginning of the year to dozens, which I see as good news. It means the investment that our council made last year is starting to pay dividends. So I'm pleased to say that whilst we missed the target, we may miss the target for the full year, but we have made significant improvements, and I hope to see that increasing continuously. Thank you, James. If there are any questions on the report or on the presentation, I'm more than happy to get one of my staff to answer them.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock first.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, it's on the email system as well, Chair. The percentages there, and as you say, the figures up to date, the extra figures that you put in are encouraging, and it's good to see that you're starting to get on top of the inquiries with the email system. And I appreciate that the sort of vast volume of calls that have come to DGFirst themselves completely outweighed the other departments in council, and I had that down as was that part of the initial problem, and so I appreciate that. But one of the questions I'd like regarding the roads defects, again, we didn't quite meet our targets with that, and I appreciate you working towards that. But you mentioned as well that in some of the areas, they were 90% of the figures to have completed within a set time scale. Now, is this, do you think, I mean, it's a bit concerning that some areas within the region are virtually maximising the repairs on time and other areas aren't. There's no figures here to split the areas, so we don't know at this point which areas are falling behind in the repairs. But again, it sort of links in with your first slide with reference the days lost by sickness. And I wondered if that had any possible tie-in. Is there a particular depot where there is more absentees there, and that would reflect on you being able to carry out the repairs in your set time? So it was just if you have any information on that.
I don't believe so, but I'll ask Mr. Clemmy, my Senior Manager Road Service, for his comments on that.
It's always difficult when you're dealing with a statistical analysis across all 4 areas to try and generalise on each of those areas. A lot of it's down to the way that you collect the data, and we've also been reviewing the way that we've collected the data across the areas, and that has had some significance in how the figures have actually ended up. Some of the variations in the areas as well, you could attribute to the fact that we did trial something in the Stewartry area where we tried to have a conscious effort to try and get through our backlog, and that affected the more recent figures on a monthly basis. So whilst there are these finer points of variation, it would be difficult to generalise and just say what the specific difference was across each area. It's an evolving process. You know, it's something that we've we've just started. It's a new innovation, and I think we're starting to improve and get better at doing the repairs, but also get better at the way that we collect the data, and the systems that we're using to collect the data are also improving. So I think perhaps in the future I may have a reply to that question that's a bit more specific, but at the moment there's no real general reason for the variation I could put my finger on.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
It's just on two of the targets that we've never met. It's the sickness ones, days lost in the sickness. As I say, we've got targets of 4.5 days. Are they really achievable considering as I say, a lot of the employees it's employed with DGFirst are manual workers, and they're not getting any younger, so probably be getting more problems. I know you find that. Aye, no, but as I say, that may be one of the contributing factors that it's not going down. Plus, as I say, some of our care workers now that work in kitchens and that, they may have flu or something like that. They may be fit to come back to work, but they're not able to do to a certain time scale that they're actually clear in case it follows on. And just another quick one, it's just on the carriageway, the defects, when they get reported, quite a few of the members are saying, as I say, it's a lack of communication to say when this work's getting done and if they've been repaired, etc. As I say, we used to get one per ward area, which gave you a list of when they expect to do the work in that area and different things. I'm just wondering if that would be possible to get that back.
I'm sure it would be. On the absence rates, we did some analysis a while ago that for, if you like, the mandatory absence, where the carers and catering staff are not allowed to return to work, and that dropped our figures by about 1%. We still exceed the target. I think it is a valid point to say that because we have a workforce that works outside a great deal of the time, and in the care sector they also come across people with ailments, it is a very challenging target to hit. Having said that, if we have that challenging target and work hard towards it, we will see a continuing reduction, as we have done for the last 3 years, in our absence rate. I don't think we will hit 4%.
Councillor Hislop.
Just one point on the carriageway defect. Are you seeing a reduction from in your speech you said the number of complaints coming in was reducing? Is that because of the first time repairs? The next question I had was on the percentage of open spaces achieving required standards in the town centre cleanliness. What have we done differently there? Because my understanding we took a budget saving out of that. Has that actually been implemented, and therefore we've done a different way of working to actually achieve the figures that are in the report, which are higher than last year? And another one on the health and safety report. Are we confident within the health and safety report that the incidents that were reported, there's no way that we've had somewhere whereby we need to look at our training schedule to actually improve it, or if there was any equipment that should have been supplied that wasn't supplied that led to any of these incidents? Thank you.
My apologies. In health and safety, every time there's an incident, it is investigated, and if there are recommendations that require a change of some sort, then we implement those changes to try and avoid that happening. Public open space key performance indicator is not the same as the statutory performance indicator was. It's a different indicator, a different way of looking at the achievement of open space cleanliness and condition. It is actually showing a very positive result. I don't know whether Mr. Marshall would wish to add anything to that.
The only thing I would add is what we've done differently. We're perhaps doing less manual and more mechanical means now as well, cleansing. So where we perhaps add.
dedicated sweepers. We're now getting mechanical sweepers going in and doing it. That's the real only difference.
And finally, your first point, Councillor Hislop, was yes, the first-time permanent repairs are making a significant difference to the numbers that we're seeing.
Councillor Triborough.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at Appendix 3, which is the Project Exception Report for ICT Development and Integration, and I link that with the elected member inquiry service, because when you report, for instance, a pothole or a carriageway repair, that goes on to Lagan, I believe, and then Lagan doesn't talk to EMES. So I'm just wondering what work is actually going on for the two to get working together, because ICT Development and Integration I think is going to be really useful in the future to make sure that the two link in.
Thank you. It's a very good point. Another councillor commented that there is no feedback on when a repair is done. And that's because our systems don't currently talk to each other, but we have a new project which is intended to link our customer relations management system, our work management system, and our repair crew, our inspectors and repair crews into a single connected system, so that in the ideal world that I hope will result, we will end up with a system where a call to Lagan will result in a fault appearing in the repair crew's cab automatically, and closing the loop by the repair crew tapping a button and the message going back to say the pothole you reported has been filled. And so that will take some time to implement, but it's one of the things that we will be bringing back to members.
Just on the back of that, in terms of the ICT system, I mean, the perceived benefit of such a system would be council-wide. So is there is that something that's been established yet? Is this sort of work progresses across the council to tie up all these systems, and is this something that will firmly sit with DGFirst, or is this going to be developed with CCS and various other parts of the council?
I'm afraid there isn't really a simple answer to that. It is some 47% of the calls received by the council's call centre relate to roads issues. So as a customer services issue, it is a priority for us to get that systems integration. So it is a shared project really between the corporate centre, CCS and DGFirst. And it is the intention that those services which impact most on our customers or service users will be addressed first. So the road service will be addressed first, closely followed by neighbourhood services, and then quite possibly other services such as trading standards and environmental health.
And just, you touched on it yourself, Councillor Martin had raised the monthly reports, which we were getting, I think, on a ward-by-ward basis in a PDF, I believe. Is that something that in the interim could continue until these systems are up and running, so that we are actually kept abreast of what's going on?
Mr. Buck. Yes, Chair, we are about to resurrect the PDF report to all councillors within the next couple of weeks. The delay and the reason for it actually ceasing was that we were working on an electronic system, a works programming tool, and there's been a delay in that project for a number of reasons. So we've actually got the project up and we've got the system up and running back office. So the work that we used to have to do to formulate that PDF document has been streamlined quite considerably. But we feel that the data's not in the right condition to send that out to the public and display on the public website at the moment. But we're hoping to put all the data in for last year, the work that we did last year, this year, and also the work that's proposed for the forthcoming year before the launch early in the spring next year.
Thank you for that. There was just a sort of general question I had just to do with the narrative of the report and the figures. And this was to do with the 11 points of the business plan. Now, it's sort of marked down as being 27% are exception reports, but 3 of those 11 projects haven't yet started or aren't due to start till next year. So obviously, it's how do you include those in a business plan? And then one of the ones that isn't an exception report indicates that there's it's 20% complete, but there's only a couple of months left to actually finish it. So I was just wondering if that's something that is that an issue with the recording system, or is that something that could be explained better in the narrative?
Certainly, that we became aware very shortly before the publication of the papers that there was an issue with how projects are being reported on in our performance management software, and that's something that we will address. One of the specific examples that you mentioned, the one that's only 20% complete, will be completed by the end of the year. Its progress is accelerating quite significantly, but certainly we can look at how that's reported.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on the exception reports? With that, then, we can go to the recommendations. Are we happy to accept the recommendations as they are? Or is it Councillor Hislop?
Chair, it's just with regard to 2.3, the health and safety part. There is information there, but it's basic. If there was maybe, when you come with your yearly report, if there was a wee bit more just to give us a flavour of what the sort of things that we're reporting are, just to see if there's any trends in there that we need to be aware of as a management committee.
Certainly, Chair. This is the first time we've reported health and safety statistics to this committee. So I'm grateful for Councillor Hislop's comments, and we will expand on the issues in the end of year report.
Okay, with that, are we happy? Oh, sorry, Councillor Driver.
Chair, just to add in the part that yourself and the Vice Chair put in with regard to ensuring that ward councils receive their reports by the end of the calendar year. Would that be enough time for that to actually happen, Charles?
Certainly, I can take that as an operational issue, yes.
So would that sit best then with 2.2, really? Okay, that's fine. Thank you. With those taken on board, then are we happy to go with the recommendations? Item 7 is the review of road maintenance operations, carriageway surface treatments. We're looking at the current operational road surfacing work practices, and this makes recommendations for improvements with the selection of materials in particular. Is there anything you'd like to add to this report?
Not particularly. Myself and Charles Clemmy will take any questions that members may have on this issue. I think Charles would like to make a comment to just clarify exactly what it is that we're discussing here.
Yeah, the report's entitled Surface Treatments, and it's actually the running surface of the road that we're concerned with. It's the material used in that top layer and doesn't relate to the other layers of bituminous materials below that, running surface only.
Any questions from members? Councillor Peacock first.
Thank you, Chair. Not so much a question, but just to say that I really appreciate this report, because the information in it makes things a lot clearer, certainly for myself as a member, and I'm sure other members as well. And it might be worth, because I think it is such a good informative report, and it gives you a good understanding of the surface treatments and the longevity of the different types, etc., etc. All the information's there. It might be worth sending this out to all members, because we all have to deal with these sort of issues as well, for information purposes only. And because I think it's a very good report. It's full of information, and it certainly helps us understand how things work a lot clearer.
Thank you. It's funny you should say that, because I believe we have some slides prepared that also will add to that understanding as well.
Chair, yes, we thought we might show you a few pictures of the situations in which the materials are laid. So if we could have the... It's an age thing, but the Europeans changed the terminology. So if I don't say exactly what's on the sheet and talk about something totally different, it's because age. This is the sort of road that we would be using hot road asphalt with pre-coated chippings. Now, the asphalt is actually a smooth material and would have very little skid resistance, so chippings are rolled into the hot material to provide that texture depth. We can't use that material in every location on the network because the kit that is used to spread the chippings is quite large. And there is a chipper, and if one considers that some of our A-class roads in the region are only 8 foot wide, you could not get that kit in there. The other sort of hot rolled asphalt without the pre-coated chippings, it's a different material, though the name is the same. Thank you, European Union. That's the sort of situation that we would use high stone content or hot rolled asphalt 5510 in. And lastly, what used to be called dense bitumen macadam, but is now asphaltic concrete. That's the typical situation that we would be using that in. And our Vice Chair recognises the location.
I just up the road of you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, I don't know if it's useful to members, but I think if we can use maybe simple presentations like this just to help with some, obviously there's technical knowledge required. I certainly find it useful, and it's maybe something that we can share with other members because it does help in explaining things to constituents if they have perennial inquiries. Councillor Driver.
I'm just wondering if we can backdate this 30 years so we can get some of the roads done in Springfields and places like that.
Okay, so are there any questions on the actual recommendations itself before we go to them? We are effectively at 2.3 being asked to recommend to PH&E that the same approach to materials being used is put forward. Councillor Hislop.
There's no issue with that with regard to the Commission. It doesn't specify anything in particular, so we've no worries there.
No, the Commission is a strategic level. This is very much the how of what we do rather than the what we do.
If there's no further questions then, are we happy to go to the recommendations and accept them? Yep, thank you. Oh, I should just note, if possible, could that information be circulated to members of the committee so that we can all kind of see exactly just where they I'm sure they'll welcome that in their mailbox. If we go now then to item 8, the service review, DGFirst. We've been asked here to agree the scope and the outcomes of the DGFirst service review initiated at the request of this committee previously. So we've been... Is there anything you'd like to add to the report first?
No, I think one thing that I will add to the report is the role and responsibilities of this committee in determining the scope of the report. And if we could just have the slides back up, please. Some members will have been aware of the service review toolkit, but not all members will have it in front of them during the consideration of this item. So the slide just puts up the roles and responsibilities of elected members at this point. Both the review project lead, Charles Clemmy, and the other senior manager involved in the service are here. If there are details about the two services, please feel free to ask questions, because the decisions today shape the scope of the report and the eventual outcomes that will be reported back to you.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I think this report is well timed, actually, because there's a lot of reviews going on in many other areas in the council, and looking through the actual the appendix in one, looking at the closer integration of management, operation of roads and neighbourhood services, looking at that, I can't see anything that I would add or take away from that particular review. And looking at the planned outcomes, I don't have any issues with that either. I'm just wondering if that, again, you're looking at Charles here and somebody else, I don't know who that other person is, right. Have they got the resource to actually do that review, for one thing, and are you confident that you will meet these time scales that are in that particular review?
The review is going to be challenging to deliver, as well as delivering the services that we have. Both services are in the process of delivering new structures anyway. We are reasonably confident that those new structures, internal structures, will help us deliver this review.
Again, it's on something that's already happened, Bill, which was the transfer of staff from DGFirst into education with janitors and things like that. Was it you?
It hasn't happened yet. It is due to happen.
Obviously, that has a potential for a savings within DGFirst, although it will be transferred to another department. I'm just wondering if there's something there that can be highlighted within the report when it comes out.
The transfer of some facilities management functions to Controlled by Education Service is really in order to work with the work that education are doing at the moment, the cluster working review and other service reviews that I understand Mr. Grant is going to come back to the Education Committee with. So it's to facilitate that process. There will be a reduction in my revenue budget, but that's only because the money will be transferred to the education budget. There will be no saving just from the transfer. There will be a saving from the additional work that education are doing.
Councillor Hislop.
Just wondering, within the review, will you be looking at opportunities under single status as well to see if there's better ways of working? I think one that's always comes up is it 5/7? I was going to say 7/5, but that's asking a bit too much maybe. But are there opportunities to be explored?
7/5 is just what the management team do. Yes, the different working patterns will be a feature of one of the aspects of the review. It's part of what will be done under the people aspect of this.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. I may be sort of slightly confused here, but reading through the papers, and I picked up on a point somewhere going through the papers that because this review is going to be taking place and the work committed to it so far has delayed the pavement, the footways review. I mean, are these to be integrated as we're going along? Because obviously, if we're doing the service reviews on the roads and things, the footways really should be included.
The review of road maintenance operations is more of a technical review. That's the detail of how we do things. This service review is looking at the management and roles of the staff. If you like to use the hackneyed phrase, breaking the silo walls down between two community-based services to look at ways in which they could work better and more effectively together.
Director, I was interested in the lean approach that's mentioned in a drive to sort of find efficiencies. I was wondering if you could maybe expand on that. Is that something that's started in train already, or is that something that you're going to introduce?
We're seriously considering introducing training for lean management techniques. And whilst the word management occurs in there, it's not managers who will be making doing the work to arrive at lean. In effect, lean, in its most basic, is eliminating waste from operations. That's wasted time or wasted materials. Looking at better organisation on site, in the workplace, and better programming of work. And in other entities such as Tayside Contracting, they've made significant savings through an investment in lean training.
Okay, if there's no further questions from members, then can we agree the scope of the service review? And if we're also happy to go with the desired outcomes of the service review as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 9 is the zero waste implementation update. This is something that I'd asked for. I'm aware that there may not always be something to report because work is ongoing with the detail, but I thought it only fair to get an update as we go forward. So if I could pass you over now to get just the verbal, is it? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say that this report is very much the same as the last two updates that we have given you, but in response to a committee decision, I am required to bring this report back to you. As I say, the report doesn't say very much more or anything different to the last couple of updates, but Mr. Herriot from P&E has kindly agreed to come and talk about any strategic or policy issues that are outlined in this paper, and Fraser Marshall will answer any questions about the implementation of the new waste collection service if members have any.
Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks, Chair. I have to agree with Bill that there isn't an awful lot of difference between the reports that we've had over the last couple of reports on the zero waste implementation. I think we're fully aware of what's actually going on, and it's about the timings of the report that I'd like to sort of make comment on. I'm just wondering if it would be pertinent to say, rather than have a report at every DGFirst committee, that we look at the timescales and say perhaps we should have a report to see how things are going on those particular dates. So, for instance, March, see what's happening with the Wigtown area side of things, and then late 2014 with Stewartry, and then so on after that, where it says in the timescales. At least then we'll be able to either see what's happened and make decisions of and try and improve things, or if things are going well, then we can maybe try and bring that forward if it's possible to actually do that. So it's about the timing of the actual reports that we get and what's actually seen in them. So I think certainly if we were to get one in March, we would see what's happened in Wigtown, and then late in 2004, then early 2015, and then late in summer 2015, just for timings of those particular reports, and make perhaps a change to the previous decision to have it every meeting.
I mean, I'm happy to hear what other members think, but I think it makes sense to have them timed according to the milestones as they're set out, so that they remain relevant. So maybe that's something we can add to the recommendation to do that. Councillor Martin.
I've got to agree with what Archie said. I think we thought this at the time when we actually agreed to bring a report to every meeting, that it was far too early. I think what Archie says, March every meeting, just before every stage is implemented, unless there's any serious issues it takes place, that should come to the committee, the nearest committee to when it's taking place. But as I say, I think they're getting it every month. We're just getting the same information and the same questions asked over and over again. So I think it would be better just to get it in the likes of March, and then before it's just before the committee, before it's going to be implemented at the other stages.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. And again, it relates more to the PHE side with the communication plan. I'm just wondering at this stage, has there been any sort of feedback from the communities where, as members, I'm sure, as we all visit the community councils and such, we're always getting comments made by them, reference where are we going to keep the boxes and all this type of thing. I know that you've been out to communities and you'll have had, I think by now, your first day up in the Wigton area to explain to other communities around there. I just wondered what sort of feedback you had from those. And obviously that will benefit as we move forward as you transfer into the other communities.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we had 5 area meetings, 2 in Wigton and 1 in each of the other areas, where we invited the community councils to send 2 people along from each community council. And that was a kind of run through and an overview of, the why and how we were going to do and the kind of detail of it as it was starting to emerge. And I think out of that, the kind of feedback we got there was a lot of questions asked and a lot of kind of similar questions asked. And a lot of it does kind of drill down into, once you put the case that we have to do this because of regulations, once you kind of identify how the process and the change process is going to be funded and the new infrastructure that's going to be there, and how it's going to be rolled out and how we're going to kind of communicate that rollout. I think then it gets down to the detail, the questions that come from the community councils, as you say, very much about how do we deal with bins at road ends in rural areas? How do we deal with areas and urban areas where there's large concentrations of properties? And I think there's certainly, all of these kind of issues have been captured, and the feedback that we've started to give to people is that, we're aware we're probably one of the last areas in the mainland Scotland to roll out a kind of multi-bin system, and that all these problems have been faced before and have been resolved, and it's very much on an individual basis, and it kind of ties in with the kind of resource that's mentioned in the report on Fraser's side as well, in terms of looking at individual areas where we know that there are going to be problems, where we have assisted pull-outs that are currently taking place, where we have urban properties that we might look at larger bins to pick up the kind of dry recyclates, or larger bins to pick up the food waste that's got to come out. So the individual community council meetings, as you say, have started to take place in Wigton, and there's certainly plenty diaried in between now and the Christmas holiday and then into the new year. And what we're tending to do there is that there's an officer from Planning and Environment Services along with an officer from DGFirst going along, to cover kind of the wide range of kind of information that we need to put across. So we're talking to them about the kind of infrastructure that's going in place, the investment, the kind of communications that will be rolled out to the timetable in terms of when things are going to happen and when in advance people will be told what's going to happen, and also kind of picking up more of the kind of operational issues. But you're right, it does come down to people have become very interested quite quickly on how it impacts on them and what it means to them. And does it mean there's 3 different days that bins have got to be put out over a 2-week period, and what happens with bins when they're emptied, and how do we stop them blown away and things like that. So these are the kind of issues that we're kind of fleshing out the detail on, and certainly working into the communication strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Martin first, and then Councillor McCutcheon.
But as I say, on communication, I think it's absolutely I've had quite a few positive feedback, considering, as I say, that when we mentioned it before, people were thinking of 5 bins the same size. But as I say, since they've seen the pictures in the broadcast magazines, they're actually only really 1 big bin and a couple of smaller boxes. I think that is, people are beginning to understand that they're not really getting 5 massive bins at their doors like they're seeing. If they see the picture in the broadcast magazine, they're now realising it's not really as bad as what they were first made out to be.
I think, could I just come back in there on the communications material? There's actually, it is quite a detailed comms plan, and we took a report to Planning House and Environment Services Committee on the comms plan around about the summertime. But there's also this photo shoot going on just now in terms of the materials of the bins and the kind of liners and things like that, and some of the vehicles, and that's been pulled together into more kind of detailed packages of information that will go out to each household as we kind of get closer to the rollout dates, to make it a lot clearer, just what is used in what bin. Again, we're kind of piggybacking on a lot of work that's been done in other authorities where they have learned or failed with the mistakes they've made in their own comms plans, and we're kind of picking up the best practice on that.
Thank you for that. Councillor McCutcheon.
Thank you, Chair. I know from own experience, the biggest thing I get is about the storage for the flats in about the flats area. But now that people are starting to get an idea as to what these councillor Martin said, there was a kind of scare tactics put out for a wee while that these were 5 big normal bins. But now that they're not, do you find that folk are kind of backing off from the flat side? Because I'm still getting inquiries as to where I'm going to store these things. I'm not storing them inside the house, and I'm not allowed to obviously put them out into the foyer area. I was just wondering where you are with that.
I think, I mean, these are still issues that will be ongoing, and it's something that we'll need to resolve for each kind of individual property. What we have said at the area meetings and the community council meetings is that if there's particular concerns, to get in touch with us, and we're certainly looking at, maybe Fraser can just say a bit about what the resource we've got just to look at individual properties. But I would imagine if there's space around flatted properties for storing bins, then an outside solution. I think we can probably understand that that there isn't the space inside in some properties, and that a larger bin solution might be more appropriate outside. But you get any more ideas on that, Fraser?
I would just add that we are currently going round in the Wigton area looking at flatted properties, terrace properties, etc., and looking for individual solutions. There are a range of solutions, but not every solution suits every property. So we're looking, and we are addressing that as we speak at the moment. Yeah.
So when you said there that you're looking for resolutions, if you happen to find any, well, I don't suppose you could email me some, please, because it's when they come to me and ask, well, what do we do with this? At least I can give them an answer rather than it going out into the public domain again.
Do that, yep.
Councillor Hislop.
It's just with regard to timescales, are you confident they'll all be met so that by summer 2015 everything should be in place and up and running?
Barring unforeseen events and torrential rain in Stranraer particularly, we are reasonably confident. It's making a difference to the construction of the zero waste park, and our guys are getting very good at working in very wet conditions. No, we are currently on track to achieve the targets. There is always the chance of an unforeseen severe weather event or something intervening.
So if we go to the recommendation, I was just wondering, we've got a sort of 2.1 and 2.2 in that we've been asked to note, which I think we're probably happy to do. Just wondering if you could clarify the additional recommendation.
The additional recommendation is that members are asked to note the progress made to date with the implementation of the Zero Waste project and keep to the milestones, and agree to receive reports on the significant milestones for the project.
Okay, thank you. As per the agenda, I've no additional business, but I'll go then on to the number 11, Local Government Scotland Act 1973, to consider excluding members of the public. Are we happy to do that? Oh, yes, and can you make sure the team... Thank you.